Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. The Atheist Republic posted a chart of the three types of totalitarian systems: communism, Islamism, and Nazism. And so they put all of these references: freedom of speech, equality of sexes, democratic, equality of races, and they put yes, no, yes, and they want to do a comparison between Islam, communism, Nazism. And this is so blatantly false, this diagram. But watch what I do with it. I'm going to add secular liberalism to the equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another line through here, another chart, and here we're going to put a box called secular liberalism. So I'll just put an S here, which stands for secular, and /L, secular liberalism. And it says, limitations of freedoms and rights. Let's see, freedom of speech. Now, communism says no, Islamism says no, Nazism says no. Well, guess what? Secular liberalism also says no. So I'll put an N here, which means no. Because under secular liberalism, you can't say things that are racial, you can't say sexist comments, you can't use certain hate speeches such as being homophobic or such as being anti-Semitic. In fact, here in Australia, in Victoria, Melbourne, you can't make hate speech against religious people. You can't go out and, insult them and vilify them based on their religion. So there you go. That's a no-no there. Let's go to the next one. Equality of sexes. He says, communism, yes. Islamism, no. Nazism, no. Now, secular liberalism, do they believe in equality of sexes? Absolutely no. Let's put a no here, an N, yep, and I'll tell you why. Because secularism actually believes that there is biological differences between men and women. So in most cases, you will see men who are dominant in certain fields, such as, for example, the army, or men's volleyball competition, or basketball competition, or cricket, or AFL football, or NFL. You don't see women mixing with men, do you? There is a complete disunity and disconnection between men and women's athletic sports. In the military, a woman can't be an SAS soldier at the highest lieutenant position. They don't get that because there's a certain biological criteria they can't fulfill. In the workforce, there are more men CEOs than there are women. There are more men candidates even in the political systems compared to women. There is even a paid gap between men and women, even in the secular world. And that's why you have vigorous feminist groups who are trying to bridge the pay gap between men and women and try and make it equal. But it's not there. Here is the data. This is the Australian Triangle of Shame. It's posted by news.com. Workplace Gender Equality Scorecard puts Australia to shame. It says CEO Head of Business in Australia, 15.4%. The Workplace Gender Equality Agency's second annual scorecard, covering nearly 4 million workers across 12,229 employees in Australia, confirms the persistence of gender pay gaps and the concentration of women in lower paying jobs and industries. It says, looking at the makeup of the management level position, the data shows 36.5% of managers overall are female, but you'll notice on the graph the silver narrows at the top where women make up only 15.4% of chief executive officers or head of business positions. Proof the representation of women declines with seniority is just one depressing takeout of a report that will shock and shame Australian employees. The overall gender pay gap for full-time workers is 24%, meaning men earn an average total of $27,000 a year more than women. So this is the secular pay gap. You know, on one end, you see how the secular world is trying to push for equality, and they go absolutely mad about it, like this LGBT are complaining for a gender-neutral toilets in all public and commercial buildings. LGBT push for all gender bathrooms in Australia. And the funny thing is the rate of rape is going up by thousands of percent. So this is their dilemma. On one hand, how they take the rights of women. On another hand, how they're trying to push for equality in the toilets. And then they complain why pedophilia is on a rise, or sexual exploitation of minors are on a rise. Now, isn't this a funny one? Strong, independent women. Have a closer look. What they used to be, and now how men look at them to be. Let's see some of the other problems of secular equality. Males not being able to see their own children due to biased custody courts against them. These are some of the problems men face compared to women. Males in the West, in the secular, especially in Australia, males account for over 75% of the homeless population, yet still have far fewer shelters for them compared to females and children. Males receiving longer prison sentences than females for committing the same crimes, in addition to general court bias against males. Prostate cancer receiving only 1/5 of the funding that breast cancer does, despite affecting males at a similar rate and killing many more. Male victim of abuse, sexual assault and rape not being taken seriously due to societal biases and feminist bias against them, thanks to the secular worldview. And this is an interesting one. We'll move on to democratic, and they say communism no, Islamism no, Nazism no. Actually, there is a system in Islamic Sharia which believes in, which is shura, which is a principle of democracy, where the people or the people of knowledge elect their leader. Unlike the secularists, where the people of non-knowledge elect their leader, and they put people like Donald Trump in office, and we see the disaster that unfolds through that. But no, again, I'm going to have to say even secularism is not democratic. No. And I'll tell you why. Because you see how secularism claims it's democratic, but then it impinges upon people's rights, such as the banning of the burqa. I mean, if it's democratic, if it's about democracy, if it's about freedoms, then you should allow people to have their freedoms. I mean, even when there's a democratic vote to say it is allowed, you have secularists going against that same democracy and trying to get the law changed, to get the law changed and forbid such practices. So if you have a majority group impinging their votes on a minority group, that is totalitarianism. It's no different actually, because if you're overriding and taking the rights of minority groups, so how do you even call that democracy? Democracy can be unjust. I mean, we'll think about it for a second. Some years ago, a few years ago in Australia, the majority of the voters voted against same-sex marriages. For how many years gay people didn't have their rights? So was that democracy that used to run many years ago, was that part of totalitarianism because the majority were voting against this minority group? So let's go to the next one, equality of races, example, Jews and so forth. They say communism, yes, Islamism, no, and Nazism, no. I mean, see, I could just go on and say how Islam believes in equality of races. There's a noble verse in the Quran, there's a hadith that says no black has superiority over a white, and, and no white has superiority over a black person. They're all equal in the sight of God. We could quote all of that sort of stuff, but we don't need to, because we know what Islam believes, not what these liars post. But anyway, so they put equality of races. Does secularism believe in equality of races? Afraid again, the answer is no. No, 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 no. I'm not sure if you know what something called white privileges are. Yeah, let's go look at them. When a white person commits an act of terrorism or he does some criminal activity in the superior secular West, no, he doesn't need to go back to the motherland and be deported. But as soon as a Middle Easterner or an Arab or say, a New Zealander or a Kiwi or whatever, when they do a crime, they have to get deported and go back. Doesn't matter how many generations lived here, you all need to go back. But when a white person commits a crime in Australia, no, we don't speak about deportation. But then these people want to talk about equality of races. Yeah, and we all know the narrative. When a dark guy commits a crime, it's called blame failed diversity. White guy commits a crime, blame gun control, blame mental health.
Shoulder to shoulder, take off your backpacks. Basketball, line up, we're about to race. Hey, we are racing for a $100 bill. The winner of this race will take this. A $100 bill. Before I say go, I'm going to make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. If those statements don't apply to you, I want you to stay right where you're at. Take 2 steps forward if both of your parents are still married. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up with a father figure in the home. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a private education. Forward if you had access to a free tutor growing up. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward if you never had to help mom or dad with the bills. Take 2 steps forward if it wasn't because of your athletic ability, you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. I want you guys up here in the front just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I have said has nothing to do with what you've done. We all know these people up here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We would be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the
So there you go, all the black people, majority of the black people left in the back. And then these Westerners want to critique Islam about human rights, about racial rights, when look at their system and look what it's done to the black man. Oh, look at this one. This is a funny one. Freedom to eat and drink what you want. Communism, yes. Islamism, no. Nazism, no.
Now, this is funny because, they say freedom to eat and drink what you want, but these same secularists actually want to forbid Muslims to eat halal food. They don't want to make halal permissible, even for Muslims living in the West. They want to remove any sort of halal eating or slaughtering from the Muslims. So, where is this narrative of saying, communism is yes, Islamism is no to certain freedom foods and drinks. Nazism, again, they say it's a yes, but then, they want to exclude secular liberalism. But no, secular liberalism is also getting a thumping no for that as well, as you can see in the screen, because they themselves try to impinge on Muslims and try and ban halal foods. And then, of course, they have certain laws such as not giving alcoholic beverages to people who are under 18, say 17-year-olds. There's no freedom. I mean, who says? The secularists say. What's the difference between 17 and 18? Not much at all. But you allow an 18-year-old to drink, you don't allow a 17-year-old to drink. It just doesn't make sense. And they don't even have a scientific justification to prove how an 18-year-old is more mature than a 17-year-old. They're not. There's no scientific data to prove that. We'll go to the next one, which is, sexual freedom. They want to talk about sexual freedom and say, oh, look, communism, yes, Islamism, no. Nazism gives it a no as well. But interestingly enough, for secularism, sexual freedom, well, there isn't always sexual freedom even in secularism, so I'm going to give it a no. Sexual freedom, can you have ancestral relationships? No, secularism says no. Can you commit the acts of pedophilia? No, so there's no sexual freedom there as well, and rightly so. Why don't they just say it? Why don't they add that in there? They want to talk about Islamism and Nazism, communism, but they don't want to talk about secular liberalism. What about the notion of, say, a 20-year-old wanting to get married to a 50-year-old? It's actually frowned. It's like, no, that can't happen, even though they're both mature adults. No, the culture is pretty much against it. Although there's no law to forbid it, the cultural norms still suggest that it shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be there. It's wrong.
And it's interesting, they say freedom to wear clothes of your own choice. Again, these are the same secularists that are trying to impose rights, to be taken away from Muslim women. They need to uncover themselves. They need to look like the West. They need to leave their Islamic culture behind them. They need to dress and look like the Western standard. They need to go out and wear bikinis. They shouldn't cover themselves in Islamic garb and all that sort of stuff. So they try and impose. This is done under secularism. They're banning the burqa. They want a ban to it. And then they want to call themselves secular liberalists. So I'm sorry, you're going to get a no again from me. And then they talk about freedom to marry whom one loves. Secularism is definitely going to get a no from me. Yes, they want to promote how, oh, look at us, we're secularists, we're liberalists. They want to give a thumping note yes to communism. They want to say Islamism no. They want to say Nazism no. But then we will see how they give no to Muslims who want to practice polygamy in the West. Freedom to marry whom one loves. If I love another woman also besides my wife and I want to marry her under a polygamy marriage, no, you can't do that under secularism. No, of course not. Because you have certain groups of people who say, no, we don't agree with it. And who are those people? These are the people who live under secularism. And of course, again, freedom to marry one whom one loves. If a 25-year-old person wanted to marry a 16-year-old person in the West and they love each other, no, you can't do that. It's against the law. If you wanted to have incestual relationships, again, no, you can't. Love is love. No, that's not acceptable. Now, this last one is a classic one. It says peaceful. I know it's a little bit hard to read, but what it says is peaceful towards other religions and or political systems. Now, this is really funny. They say communism, no. Islamism, no. Nazism, no. And, of course, Islam says against your enemy, if they resort to peace and treaty, then you also resort to peace and treaty. This is what Islam believes. But anyway, secularism is going to get a big thumping no for me because of the very fact that secularism is only peaceful towards other political systems if those other political systems are obedient to the secular republic or the secular state. Just an example, if North Korea, for example, has a nuclear program and that nuclear program threatens a bigger arsenal of weapons against, say, a secular state like America, then no, America is now going to go to war with them. Yes, because America wants to be at the dominant position. The secular state wants to be at a dominant position. And if they want to hold that dominant position, they will not allow anyone else to be a threat to that national security. And, even if they don't engage in battle and war, they will still engage in battle and war to remove those sorts of weapons from those who they find is a national threat. So, of course, they are only peaceful if they are in a dominant position. Peaceful towards a religious or political system. I don't see how secularism is actually peaceful towards religious organizations, apparently, like, say, Iraq or, Sudan or Yemen or, Pakistan and things like that. I don't see how they're peaceful. They're always engaging in want to battle and war with them. We see the difference between the secular state between Israel and Palestine. We also see how, they identify ISIS. And again, I'm not defending ISIS. I don't believe they're religious at all. But the West views them as religious and Islamic. And so the West is not peaceful towards them. The West wants to go out and kill them all, every single one of them. They don't turn the other cheek as Jesus commanded them to do. They want to go there and they don't want to accept them or live side by side with them. No, they want to kill them and get rid of them altogether. So there's no such thing as this secular complete peace towards the religious minority as they see it to be ISIS. No, they want to exterminate all of them. And I agree, they may have the right reasons to do so, of course. It's a terrorist organisation, they want to get rid of it. But don't go around and preach how you are tolerant of religious organisations because you claim that they are a religious organisation. You're not tolerant against them, nor should you be. But don't proclaim to be tolerant towards religious systems or groups who are out there when you're not. You won't tolerate them and you will kill them if possible. And even towards moderate Muslims. I mean, can you imagine if we had a political system here in Australia? Let's say Muslims wanted Sharia law here. You know, the moderate version of Sharia law. They wanted it here. We're not talking about beheadings and we're not talking about kill apostates and all that sort of stuff and homosexuals. Just some of the Sharia concepts that even agree with liberalism. If you put that title there and ran it through office, they're not going to accept it. No. So they're not going to respect that political system, nor are they going to be peaceful with it. They're going to demolish it if it comes to the West, even in its most peaceful forms. So that's it, folks. Notice we gave secularism a no throughout the whole point. See, we could play the same game with secular liberalism. It's not that hard.